FAME.
The government has recently brought out the API initiative to bring in greater transparency and make it easier for do business when it comes to the PLI schemes. There have been changes also made to the FAME scheme for the auto sector. To speak about these changes and initiatives, with us today is Arun Goel, the Secretary for Heavy Industry. Sir, thank you for joining us. Let me ask you about the Application Programming Interface, or API, that has been launched. How integral is this to the automotive PLI scheme, and what is the thought behind it?
Parikshit, you know, when we launched PLI for auto, we had at that time told the industry that we shall be creating a dedicated portal to ensure ease of doing business and speedy and faceless disbursement of the incentive. So to honor that commitment, after the completion of process of approvals in March, we started extensive discussions with the main OEMs and auto component manufacturers to understand how they operate, what kind of systems they have in their premises, because our aim was not to create any paperwork which is avoidable. So we wanted to use the data which the manufacturers are already generating in their operations to be transmitted in a manner which does not violate their non-disclosure agreements with their suppliers or whatever secrecies they want to maintain. But at the same time, the main condition of the PLI of domestic value addition is transmitted to us from the system, which does not leave any scope for complaint. So that was the objective. So when we interacted, we went to the premises of companies, we saw how they are operating, and then we have now come out with this API, which is Application Programming Interface. What is going to happen in this? See, in industry, because auto industry has a lot of components, so there are a lot of suppliers. Each manufacturer has his own ERP or whatever, whereby the entire data is captured in their normal manufacturing operation. So that data tells which supplier is giving which equipment at what price, what are the duties. This all is because of the GST, customs and all, this all is being captured. Now, what we are saying, from their ERP or whatever, they shall, through the API which we have created, give us the data of domestic value addition without doing any extra work, transmit it to our portal, and on that basis, the PLI incentive shall be dispersed. So what would it ensure? It would be make the system entirely transparent, paperless, faceless, and system-driven. So while the voluminous paperwork shall get eliminated, at the same time, disbursements shall be automatic, trouble-free, and very fast.
Right. How is this going to operate between the ERP system of the auto companies and the PLI auto portal?
Yeah. I'll explain to you on this diagram, you see. So, as I said, an OEM or a component manufacturer has a number of suppliers. Let's see, for the ease of explanation, there are 2 suppliers. So, whatever purchases are being made by this OEM or component manufacturer, they are being captured in their system today. Now, this input is converted in that factory into the output. Now, output could be a vehicle, which is a car of model 1 or model 2, or an auto component. So this is the output.
Right.
There's a condition in the PLI that any output which is eligible for PLI incentive shall be pre-approved by one of our testing agencies. So which means, as is happening in the FAME today, the PLI beneficiaries will be taking that part to the testing agency. Now, when the testing agency is approving the part, it will also now, through the API which has been standardized, so the standardized API would have facility to name different fields like you have in Excel sheet.
Right.
So the testing agencies will approve those fields. So this is the API then becomes for this PLI manufacturer specified. So it gets like a boutique product. It becomes that. And whenever this data comes from this API, which is generated within the premises of the manufacturer, it gives data to Ministry's portal.
Right.
So it will be more clear in the next thing. See, this is. Now, gray area is within the premises of OEM or component manufacturer. The yellow is the Ministry. So here, ERP database is of the OEM or auto component manufacturer. From here through API, data is fetched and DVA data in JSON format is created. This is happening within the premises of the auto manufacturer. From this, data is pushed to MHI portal database. And on way back, MHI database will acknowledge it through the API through ERP database, which shall create the logging. So this process gets completed. Now what it implies also, if you see this manufacturer's ERP database or data fetching and converting into through API into the DVA data on JSON format, it happens within the premises of manufacturer.
Right.
Government doesn't have access to this. Government is only getting the data which they are pushing in JSON format and reverse acknowledgement.
Right.
So you can see the manufacturers is absolutely safe. And this pushing will also be happening in a safe environment.
Right. Right.
We are ensuring it. And when I say safe environment, this is to the satisfaction of auto component manufacturers.
Correct.
So we have had detailed discussions. Whatever they want to ensure their confidence, we are ensuring the safe environment.
Right.
Now I'll go a bit detailed to give you a particular example. Now let's suppose of a particular batch a vehicle is made. This is the chassis number. Now this is the model number XYZ and it has a variant LX. So let's suppose for the sake of simplicity it has 5 components. Now this is the value of components. One is 15,000, 110,000, 50,000, 35,000, 21,000. Now each component has its own domestic value.
Yeah.
It is varying. Let's suppose the first one is 100%. So then it becomes 15,000 as a domestic value addition. The second one, which is 110,000, let's suppose the domestic value addition is 40%.
Right.
So then it is only 44,000 value.
Okay.
So we keep on doing this. So the total figure, let's suppose it comes to 56.19%.
Right.
So what they are transmitting to us is the last figure. That's why we have mentioned here in the yellow color.
Yeah.
This internal data is entirely of the auto manufacturer. This they are not sharing with us.
Right.
They are sharing with us this, but this 56.15 is driven from their data. It's not typed in. So we are believing it. Tomorrow, if there's a complaint, then we can go back to the digital footprint to ensure that what has been transmitted is factually correct or incorrect.
Right.
But this all continues to be with the auto manufacturer. It is not coming to us.
So it will help you check frauds, help you to check any sort of a complaint and verify the complaint also.
Absolutely.
Right. The government has also brought in a new DVA data submission criteria for both PLI and FAME schemes. Could you also give us a sense of why this was done and what is the change from earlier?
No, you're talking about the FAME?
FAME.
Yeah. See, in FAME we had the phased manufacturing program. So whereby we had given which component of the vehicle should be made in India by which date. Now this was happening, we received a number of complaints against some of the people that the model which they got approved from ARI or ICAT was showing that being made in India. But in reality, what on the basis of that approval was being sold in the market was not made in India. And in the complaints, they gave us the import data of those companies, of those components. So when we cross-checked, some of those were found correct. So now there has to be a systematic change. Now that's what we have now come out with this API, whereby whatever domestic value addition is happening, it is being captured in the factory premises, and from there through API the final DVA gets transmitted to us. It does not leave any scope of complaints if they are false. Many times people say the complaints are false. Why do you inquire and all? See, as a government, whenever we receive a complaint, we have to take cognizance. And if, particularly if there is specific data, we need to go into detail. But under the existing system, it was not possible. With the new system, the data coming to us from the system, the possibility of telling a lie automatically decreases. And if the complaint is false, the manufacturer will not be paid at all. The system is so fast through the digital footprint, we can make out whether the complaint is genuine or false. So I think this helps both ways. It helps in cutting down the complaints, that means the false complaints. At the same time, it will encourage auto manufacturers to do the DVA, which is the objective of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Sir, I would like to ask you about the number of complaints that you received, because there were a lot of complaints which are doing the rounds. How many did you receive? In how many cases did you possibly take action, and would it be possible for you to tell us about those companies?
See, we received few complaints. Each complaint has been taken cognizance of with absolute seriousness. We are not letting anybody do a wrong thing. And we are following a uniform criteria for all complaints, irrespective of who the manufacturer is. You can check up in the market. We are following the same strategy. We are going to the root, and whatever complaint is found genuine, we are taking the action appropriately, proportionate to the mistake or the error on their part.
Right. Does this also mean holding back the incentives?
Of course. Why not? If somebody has taken X money from the government exchequer, which was not his due, so is it not the government duty to recover it? It's our duty to recover. So we are recovering that. In the sense, that amount, if they have taken X money, that X money from the future payments will be stopped. But not more than X, only X. We are very clear about it. So the moment the product is made in India, nobody will ask questions. But if they have said made in India, but it's not made in India, and if they've taken a benefit for that, that thing will not be paid.
Are you also cross-checking the incentives that have been given out since the start of the FAME scheme, or is this a recent phenomenon?
No, any complaint is saying specific. As I said, in the FAME phased manufacturing program had specific dates for specific components.
Right.
So till that date they could import. Beyond that date they could not import.
When these fires took place, there were also question marks about the quality checks being carried out by these companies, about the products that they are submitting to ARAI and ICAT for testing, and there were also talk about ramping up the testing capabilities of our agencies. What are you doing about that, sir?
See, we believe in creating a system for human safety. And at the same time, the industry should have a prior notice, time to carry out the upgradation, and as a whole, the industry should be elevated to a higher level of working. So that's the objective. With that objective in view, now we saw what tests are currently being performed in our testing centers. Under the MHI, we have the ICAT and ARAI. So there are three types of tests. The tests at the level of cell, then at the level of battery pack, and BMS, that's the battery management system. So we in the ministry contacted experts and saw which all tests are currently being done for all these three across the world. So after tabulating, we created a data that these are the tests being done across the world. And which are the tests which being done in India. So now, when we compared the two, there were a large number of tests which, as on today, we do not have the capability. That's because our industry is growing. So these things happen simultaneously. Like for the non-EV, we have set up NetTrip, 3,500 crore. We have created a huge infrastructure in ICAT Manesar, then NetX Indore, then GRC Chennai, whereby all the international level tests are currently being carried out in India. Previously, those vehicles had to go outside India for testing. So now for the e-vehicles, on the battery side, we enumerated those. So now we found, like the tests which not currently being done, for example, on the fire exposure or altitude simulation then vibration, drop, free fall case stress, these kind of tests. Then mechanical shocks, mechanical crush, these tests were not being done. Then we have the overcharge control of current, electrical, thermal shock and cycling, it's a mechanical test. Over discharge protection, this is electrical. Overcharge protection, which is electrical. Then over temperature protection, which is electrical. Water exposure, water immersion, these are mechanical tests. External short circuit protection, this is an electrical test. For all these tests, we then checked which kind of equipment is required. The best equipment by world standards. So we identified that. And now we have sanctioned the money to ARI Pune, 41 crores for purchasing all this equipment. Most probably this equipment shall be in position in ARI Pune by March. And now what we are targeting that from 1st of April, because PLI is affecting for 1st of April, so any product availing PLI incentive or FAME incentive, which is manufactured or sold after 1st April, must meet with these standards. Otherwise, the PLI incentive or the FAME incentive shall not be payable. So this is now we are creating the infrastructure before, giving advance notice to the industry. What would happen with this? This will take our EV industry to the international standards. Because now they will manufacture the products which can meet global standards. So while because of the huge demand within our country, because we have a huge market, they'll reach the scale of production. Simultaneously, because of the scale and the quality, India would become a manufacturing hub for global supplies. Because our products would be capable of meeting standards globally. That's how India will become an export hub for the EV industry.
Right. Very important points. But as you empower ARAI further, you have said that you've sanctioned 41 crores. Is there more funding going to be allocated for ARAI and ICAT? And at the same time, are there changes expected in the testing criteria in the law as well, as far as the battery testing, the BMS and the vehicle testing mechanism go? Are we expecting some rules as well, sir?
See, first of all, for upgradation of ICAT and ARI to the global standards, there is no dearth of money. We want them to be the world's best. Money is not at all a constraint. We are moving in that direction. Secondly, standards, the BIS standards, which is the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, thereafter under the rules, which is MORTH. Obviously, we are telling them all what we are doing. So accordingly, they'll upgrade the BIS standards and the rules under MORTH so that these regulations get duly empowered.
Right. And my final question, what would be your advice to the industry? Yes, the EV industry is still at a nascent stage. There are a lot of new entrants, a lot of new startups. There have been about 8 or 9 incidents of fire which were investigated. A report is with the government now. What would be your advice to the electric vehicle makers in the country, the new entrants in the market as well?
No, first of all, I must compliment the industry. Indian auto industry is a very conscious industry because whatever changes we have brought, we discussed with them. All of them have wholeheartedly supported. Rather, they told us, for example, for the on-road construction equipment, their emission norms are at par with the European norms. But off-road construction equipment, the emission norms are still lower. Now they tell to make the emission norms more strict, and I asked why. Is it because the government made stricter norms for on-road, the quality of production in India improved? Because of that, now they are exporting to many countries. So the industry knows that their future lies in giving better quality. Not only to the Indian consumer, but also for exports. So they are fully supportive. The auto industry wants these checks to be in place. They have told us many of the things as to what is happening where. They have helped us in locating the equipment, in identifying the standards. So this all is happening in total consultation with the industry. And industry wants it, they are fully supportive.
Right. And on the context of safety, when it comes to electric vehicles, what would be your message? How would you leave it to the industry after reviewing all these incidents over the past few months?
If there's one thing, that's human safety. That's the topmost priority for every one of us, whether it's the government or for the industry. And if our vehicles are safe, then they'll be able to sell more. And then they'll be able to make money. So I think everything revolves around human safety. We are committed to it.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to us, sir.
Thank you.